Hey everybody, it's Monday night. It's always booking comedy. We are missing a guest, and I am going to email him right now. Let's see. I hope everybody's having a great 2026, a great week. Let's make sure we got the link in this email, and if Adam doesn't show up, we will do a solo episode. I got plenty to talk about. This is always booking comedy. I've been booking comedy like crazy. I ran the biggest show possibly of my life last week. Super fun. A Friday night show, Vale comedy show. First time we've ever done a weekend Vale comedy show, and we had over 150 people there. We ticketed even more, but some folks didn't show up, and it was really terrific. Mal Hall was the headliner. Mike Hammock featured. I hosted. We were in the Piney Ballroom at Manor Vale Lodge. It was a very fun time. Oh, here comes Adam. So we're going to have a real episode here. Adam, nice to meet you, sir, or talk to you again.
Hey, sorry to be just a little late.
That's okay. How's your day going?
Good. You can see all my hair is looking perfect after hanging out in my pajamas with my kids and watching them all day. So things are going great.
Nice. You're out in Salt Lake?
Yep. Yeah.
Nice. And we met at a Don't Tell comedy show, right?
Yeah, in Park City. Yep.
Yeah,
Downstairs.
yeah, cool. You've been back to that venue?
I have, yeah. I just did it like 2 weeks ago. I think it was something like that.
Sweet.
Yeah. Yeah,
How'd it
it's
go?
such a
This is a
nice
neat venue.
place.
Very cool.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, right now it's the hopping months for Park City. So it was lots of fun. Fun to perform in front of like a group where people are just from all over. Like if you ask
Yeah.
where people are from, you're just as likely to get Boston as you are to get Washington or whatever. So
Yep.
everybody was just hanging out in Park City for the winter time.
Sweet. Yeah. Pretty similar to Denver, or Denver to Vale. I ran a show in Vale on Friday. Did you say Friday night?
Yeah, would have been
Yeah.
Friday night.
Yeah. This most recent Friday or like 2 weeks ago Friday?
2 weeks ago Friday.
2 weeks ago. So I did a Friday night, which is MLK weekend, which is a big ski weekend traditionally, but hotel reservations are down about 25%. Can you guess why?
Why is that?
No snow. Do you guys have the same
Uh,
problem, or is it different out there?
no, we've got nothing up
Yeah,
here
yeah,
right
yeah.
now.
Okay.
Yeah, it's completely barren. Yep, 100%
It's
same.
pretty rough. Are you a skier yourself?
Oh, I got priced out of it at this point. I feel
Okay.
like
Yeah.
it was like last year. I tried to take my boys skiing for the first time. I got two little guys,
Yeah.
and I lived right near Sundance, and so I was like, oh, I'll just see how much it is to take a day trip up there, and it's if I remember right, it's about $300 for a day pass. And I
Good
was like,
grief.
I don't think I'm going to be able to teach my 4-year-old in a day. I'll teach them the value of the dollar by saying we're going
Nice.
to go do something else. So yeah, it was a
Nice.
real bummer. Yeah,
Yeah, that's too bad. That's too
yeah.
bad. Do you so when you host these ski season comedy shows, do you have ski jokes for the people there?
I don't. I thought about it after seeing you, where you were like, "Oh, I've got all the mountain town vacationing ski time sort of material you could wish for." And I was
Yeah.
like, "Oh yeah, I guess if I'm going to do Park City more often, I probably should." Yeah. I've got a
Where,
fair amount of like regional jokes because I've moved around so much to play off
yeah.
with people, which is nice. I've lived in Florida and I've lived in the Midwest and I've lived on the West Coast and Pacific Northwest and Southwest
Wow.
even. So I can kind of pull from those sort of things of just talking about where I've lived. But but yeah, I got to come up with my snowboard and
Park
skiing
City joke.
jokes.
Ever since I've been in Park City, I haven't been doing it recently, but for like 10 shows afterwards, I was telling this joke where I just did a big show in Park City, Utah. Ironically, very difficult place to park.
Yeah,
Park City, Utah.
fair, fair
You can have that
enough.
one.
Yeah,
It's kind of like a street joke, kind of obvious,
perfect,
but
perfect, perfect.
I did get a parking ticket, so it was
Did you?
Yeah, I
Did
did.
you while you were there?
I did. I
Jeez.
also got out of the parking ticket by
Oh,
basically
nice.
calling. And I mean, I originally, it wasn't my intention to get out of it, but to pay those parking tickets, you have to like get on the Town of Park City website and make an account. And
Hmm.
I couldn't create the account because it wanted you to like verify the account with an email, and the email never showed up. So I had to call in. And
Yeah.
once I went through all the effort of calling in, I was like, this was my first time ever visiting Park City. I didn't see a sign. I'd like to come
Yeah.
back sometime. And they're like, you know what? I can see it was just your first time. We're going to change this to a warning. You're all set. I was like, all
Oh,
right,
that's
sweet.
nice. Dude, it's a benefit of visiting wealthy towns, I feel like. I'm always a little confused. I'm like, why is charging a car, I drive an electric car. I'm like, why is it only free in Park City? This is the only place for people who can afford it. What is going on?
That's
Everything's free
hilarious.
here. So yeah.
That's so funny. What's the craziest thing that's happened in that venue? Any, well,
Yeah.
and then after that, I want to ask you about the intermission thing. Like if you do that at every show, but let's start with the crazy. Let's
Oh,
hook
sure,
you
sure,
with
sure.
something crazy if you got something crazy.
Yeah, the craziest thing for that show, well, let me see. I mean, the craziest thing for that show is unfortunately the one that I was not present for it, but I still want to talk about it because I still
Okay.
think it's wild.
Yeah.
So, I run a lot of the Don't Tell shows out here with my buddy Ryan, and this was like just a month ago or something like that, where there was a lady who just kept heckling. Of course, she kept calling out. She had a lot to drink, which is very normal in that show, especially because everybody's like walking around and whatnot. No one's driving, so they're just like, there's no limits, there's
Right.
nothing. And so this lady just keeps like calling out. And I think as heckling goes, where it's like once or twice, and the people like get to the comics play off of it decently well. But then, by like fifth time, everybody's like, please stop
Yeah.
this, please. And she just was not getting a clue. So my buddy Ryan, who I run these shows with, went up to her and was just like, hey, I appreciate you being here, but you need to knock it off. And she immediately, I've never heard someone actually do this in real time, but she said, do you know who I am?
Ah.
Just so crazy, like such a cliche. And I was like, am I supposed to? And she was like, we know Joe Rogan. It's like, good for you.
Yeah.
That's Joe's not here tonight. Can you
He'd be
please stop
appalled by your
talking?
behavior as well, by the way.
Also true. So he's like, can you please stop doing this? And
Where
she just was
do you
not
know
getting
where
it.
she was in that room? Was she like up
Yeah, she
close?
was like second row back, second row
Okay.
back.
All right.
Yeah, so very close. And this was during the intermission actually that he like
Oh,
finally talked to her. It was like,
okay.
hey, so it was kind of like in a easier to pull her out, not in front of everybody at this point.
Right.
But she's just like not getting it. And he's like, I'm going to kick you out if you don't stop. She says some other things. Anyway, he goes and finds the guy that she's with and is like, hey, your wife. And he goes, who? And he goes, your girlfriend? And he's like, is here? And he's like, no, the lady you're with. He goes, oh, okay. Which is already like, wait, what is happening here? But anyway, he tells her, he's like, hey, he tells him, like, we're going to kick you guys out if you can't keep it down. And he was like, okay, sounds good. Anyway, she didn't. She gets kicked out. He pulls her out and is like, hey, you need to leave. To both of them. On the street, she starts screaming at my buddy in his face. And she just keeps yelling about, like, do you know who I am? And then finally, her husband, boyfriend, paramour, whoever this is, grabs her,
Good for her.
grabs her by the throat and says, knock it off. We
Whoa.
have to stop. Yeah. And Ryan's like, I'm no longer worried about this lady. I'm worried for this lady. But then he was like, the crazier part is she kept going in like the exact same tone as she was before he like grabbed her. So it's just like, you need to stop. He's like, yeah. And he's like I was saying, like, it was just like, what is going on? And it just like didn't stop. He finally like went in and the guy was like, no, this is anyway, they like separated and it turned into like them thing. And then they had other friends who came out and stuff and left. But he was like, he grabbed her by the throat and told her to stop in the street. And she didn't. And I was like, well, kudos to you. You never had a chance then for getting them to back down
Wow.
if
So
that's
she
the
didn't make it to the
relationship.
second half of the show, post intermission.
No,
Okay.
no,
Well,
she
that's
did
good.
not. Yeah.
It's a good thing. It's always
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
tricky to kick people out. No, you never
Yeah.
want to do it. I hate when I'm
Ugh.
on stage and I'm like have to deal with it from stage because my immediate reaction, which I've like beat out of myself, is to be mean and go after the person because you will
Yeah.
lose the crowd immediately. The crowd doesn't understand yet that they're a problem. They are
Yeah.
on the side of any audience member. They're a team. But if you're nice about it and you give them a chance and you give them enough
Yeah.
rope, they will hang themselves if they're already a
Yeah.
problem and too drunk. And eventually, hopefully, a showrunner or a venue person will kick them out. But eventually, you can do something like ask the audience, do you want this person to go? What do you
Yeah.
what should we do here? But it's wasteful. Like if you're doing like an hour, it's not
Oh,
always
sure. You got
it's not going to
time.
kill you to waste 5 minutes on that. It's a bummer, that tape
Yeah.
is no longer usable. But if you're doing like 7 minutes and you got to handle that stuff, like that
Yeah.
sucks.
I always feel bad for the people who have like a guest spot or something or whatever, and they get, yeah, that 5 minute slot, 7 minute slot. And then someone's like, hey, I've got some thoughts. And it's like, do you realize how much effort it was just to get to this point that I'm finally getting my 5 minute slot as a guest spot sort of thing? They're like,
Yeah,
ugh.
I'll throw out a pro tip that I got from Stir Crazy Comedy Club. They
Hmm,
uh, they in the green room they have rules and like instructions, like features shouldn't do crowd work, that kind of stuff.
that's
And
good.
one of the things is a keyword that if you say it on stage, the staff will kick out the person. And you can say it in
Oh,
any context.
wow.
I'm not going to say what the keyword is, but let's say it was
Yeah, yeah,
like
yeah.
bird. If the word was bird, you can use that in so many contexts. Like,
Sure.
hey, I remember Larry Bird going up against Magic
Yeah.
Johnson, or Rainbird sprinklers. You can just use it in a lot of
Yeah.
different ways, and then the staff will take care of it. So I usually, oftentimes, I have like you do, 4 or 5 comics on a show. Before the headliner gets up, you already see there's a potential problem. You can tell when you're checking people in how drunk they are.
Right.
If there's going to be a
Right.
problem if they're chatty. But I will go up to the feature or the headliner and just because I don't do this every single show because it's kind of rare. But I should probably do it every single show and just tell them, hey, here's the keyword. If you want the person gone, let's get rid of them.
That's
And you
awesome.
just say the word, and I'll be the bad cop. I'll get rid of them
I
for
love
you.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna start doing that. My
The
my
thing
go-to
that,
personally is usually just like over complimenting the heckler,
uh,
where I'll say things that where because I feel like it automatically like gives a wink to the audience while not going mean. Where it's just
yeah,
like, look, you and I both know that your jokes are crushing right now. You're doing such a good job, buddy. Like seriously, everyone came here to see you to start off, and you're doing great with it.
ah,
However,
great.
if we can like exchange some of these jokes afterwards, oh my gosh, I would laugh so much harder in that
Yeah,
moment just because you're so good. Does that sound cool? Usually people are like, all right.
yeah, yeah.
And it's a little bit more giggly than the classic, like, you're ruining this for me, sort of like
Right.
attitude
That's
sort of
terrific. I
thing.
really like that. That's cool. Um,
Yeah,
okay, so let's talk about the intermission. Is that specific to
sure.
that venue or do you do that at every show?
No, that's specific to that venue. I hate
And,
it, to
and
be
since
perfectly
you and I
frank.
have both been at that show, for the audience, why don't you explain what the intermission is, how it works, etc.?
Yeah, we usually have 5 comics per show there. It's just a showcase show, so you've got kind of a range of time and talent, but about 5 comics. And so we go 3 comics up, and then we have a break to let people go back to the bar, and then we do 2 more comics. And so, yeah, that venue specifically requested it, and I get it in a way because they do have a designated bar area, and they don't have like waits. We used to try to have wait staff be there to like bring drinks, but then they were like, I mean, at that point, like what we're taking home is going way so
Yeah.
just like dying because we've got so many people that we're utilizing now, so we can't do that. And then we tried to have it where people would go up to the bar, but I think by virtue of it being Park City and everyone's walking around, so they're drinking even more, it was just like constant popcorn of people like popping up. And the bar is so close to the stage, there's no reason not to go to the bar while people are talking because you can still hear the comic
Yeah.
easily and all that sort of stuff. So kind of the compromise that's been made is that like 10-15 minute intermission between comics to
And
just have people go up and refresh their drinks and
so
all that.
when you got 5 comics, the first one is the host, and you got 4 more,
Yep.
right? So the host goes up, you have a couple comics, you have the
Yeah,
intermission.
we
Go ahead.
yeah. We usually do about 10 to 15 for a host, and then a 10-minute feature spot, and then third comic is going to get 10 or 15 minutes we'll have that 10 to 15 minute break, come back to a 10 to 15 minute comic, and then on to our main spot, which is, I mean, I
Huh.
don't even know what to
That's
call it,
that's
honestly, at
not what
that point,
happened.
headliner or whatever. And
It,
it's a 30
the
minute
host
spot
doesn't
there.
always perform after the intermission.
They sometimes do. We have done it. We have done it at times, and sometimes we leave it up to the first comic who's coming back after the intermission, whether or not they want the host to come up.
Okay.
In due time, we'll
Yeah.
always have the host at least come up to say, "Hey, we're back in it."
Yeah.
Mostly because I hate any time that I have to get up on stage, even as a host, and I have to break down rules, and then I have to go do comedy or
Yeah.
any sort of transition of like, "Hey guys, we're coming back in now. We're starting the show." All right, so here are my jokes. Like it feels like you're a teacher doing jokes instead of being a comedian. You know, you're supposed
Right.
to be the party, and suddenly you're supposed to be two things. And so yeah,
Yeah.
so always have the host up at least to be like, we're back to it. But
Right.
sometimes they do a little bit of time as well,
Yeah.
depending.
That's nice to kind of re-energize the room and get them back into the rhythm of jokes. So what
Yeah,
are your
and
thoughts on, did you push back at all in the intermission, or were you like, this venue's great, I'll do whatever?
yeah, I mean, obviously, anytime you work with a venue, I'm always trying to keep in mind like, what are they hoping to get out of this at the end of the day, right? And so I always try to ask people for like, what are your goals as a venue? Obviously, it's pretty much the same thing every single time, but sometimes people have unique sort of situations. And theirs was the very straightforward, like alcohol sales, as well as repeat customers on days that aren't this is extremely valuable to us. So we picked their brains. We tried a couple things, like I said, and we went down that list. But yeah, intermission became kind of the medium of they weren't fully satisfied, but we pushed drinks hard, and so they got more satisfied. And then for us, it was the hey, we're not. This isn't ideal for us either, but it's workable at the very
Yeah.
least, sort of thing. Because no point in running a show. I see this from people who try to book shows and produce stuff all the time, where they're like, "How do I do the best comedy?" And they forget that it's got to be a partnership. And I think there's this thing. Uh, Comedians aren't unionized, but sometimes we have the mentality of it. It feels like where it's like, I'm here for the comics, no comic can do wrong sort of attitude.
Right.
But I'm like, hey, if it's the difference between like having a slightly worse than ideal comedy show or no comedy show, like keep in
Right.
mind those are your options. You might get the perfect setup, but you'll only get the perfect setup for like 3 shows, and then your show gets canceled because your venue is going
Right.
to be like, this just doesn't make sense for us.
Yeah, that's a good way of looking at it. I'm definitely on the spectrum more towards the comics and
Yeah.
constantly looking for new venues. And maybe that's part of
Mm,
it because I churn venues. I'm constantly losing venues. Like I might have a
really?
venue for a year, they'll go out of business or,
Oh,
whatever
gotcha.
reason, seasonality or something. And so I'm always looking for new venues. And over time, I'm always running more shows. So I always need more venues.
Sure.
Ultimately, the way I look at it is it's going to be best for the venue in the long run if the shows that I have that work. Like I have one show that's 6 years old, and it's great. And like the other
Yeah.
day, like the hotel where I ran it last Friday, like they were over the moon with how much business they did. They have a restaurant on property, and they did additional business before the show and after the show because we drew 150 plus people to their property, and they were just thrilled. And that wouldn't have happened if it took years of word of mouth that this is a really good
Yeah.
comedy show to be able to sell that many tickets. So,
Sure. I
but
think,
you would
yeah.
make a valid point.
I think, yeah, I can see both. And I think, it'll probably depend situationally. I've seen a number of good shows die earlier than I think they needed to, just because, someone had a vision, but they didn't have an ear to like listen to the venue as they warned them along the way, like, hey, if this keeps happening exactly how it's happening, we're done.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, who knows how well it would have worked in another way or whatever. I think of, I had a venue who tried to put kind of they tried to put an intermission in up top, and thankfully we were able to grow the show quick enough that I quickly was able to talk to them after and be like, I think we've reached the volume of people attending this that we got to do away with this intermission. And at that point it was like a bummer, but now you have the weight, so let's go for
Yeah.
it, sort of
Yeah.
thing.
That's great. I think something else that's different, maybe from my perspective, is like I fly in the headliners from like New York and LA. So
Oh,
I feel
sure.
some pressure to run a good show for them. And I can
Yeah.
kind of pass that off on the venue and explain to the venue, look, these are comics who've been doing comedy for 15 to 20 years. Both you and I want to look good to this nationally touring headliner because they might wear your sweatshirt on a big podcast, or they might, talk
Yeah.
about you on stage, or work out a new joke that, includes you and eventually gets onto a special or something like that. So I don't know. I definitely feel some pressure to, I'll
I'll
keep
come
talking.
find you later, buddy.
Uh,
Here, I'll come
we
find
had
you
a
in a bit.
great, uh, we had a great show though this last Friday. Um,
Yeah. It was what you had a great show this last Friday? Is that
yeah,
what you
yeah,
said?
out in Vale Comedy
Oh,
Show
nice.
at Manor Vale. It was super fun, and it was the first time we've ever done a weekend show. We always did weeknight shows previously, and it was
How
great. We
much
got another
comedy
one
is
tomorrow.
in that is like surprising me in some ways that you've got like so many shows, but I guess if you're flying people in, that makes sense. Because I'm always when I was talking to you,
The
even I was like,
weekend
what's
weeknight
the
thing, is that what you mean?
yeah. Well, more so I'm just like, what is the depth? Because I mean, I'm in Salt Lake City, which is a good sized city, but by no means a large city. And and when I'm thinking of booking talent and stuff, sometimes the well is more shallow than I wish it was at times. But I guess if you're flying people into Vail and stuff, then it's a completely different story.
Well, yeah, we typically fly into Denver, which is 100 miles away, and then we'll drive to Vail and to other mountain towns. But I started
Yeah.
out getting people that I couldn't afford on weekends. You got a
Hold on
heckler.
one second.
Hey, buddy, I love what you're doing right now. It's really working. The whole audience loves it. Oh, this is terrific. So yeah, so I'll just keep talking about the why we started doing weekday things, and uh, there we go. We got an addition to the show. I love it. Love it. Do we want to introduce, or should we just ignore the? I can't hear you. You're muted. You got your mute thing on. I don't know if I can unmute you from here. Can I? No. It's probably on your screen. There you go.
This is Milo. Say hi, Milo.
Hey Milo, how are you, buddy? We were just talking about hecklers. You're doing a very good job.
We've got a whole example right here on my lap. Isn't this fun?
Anyways, so when I got started, I couldn't. You do shows. When you get paid more on a weekend than you do on a weekday, typically.
Right.
And so I couldn't afford these people on weekends. So I kind of started doing weekday things. I also could get bigger names. Like I would have people coming to comedy clubs in Fort Collins and Denver and Colorado Springs for like a Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and I would get them shows on a Tuesday, Wednesday, Sunday, kind of thing.
Which, in all honesty, is like super valuable. I feel like we get that a lot out here as well. Well, working with my buddy Ryan, we've been able to book people on Fridays and Saturdays, and it's nice. And that was always like a lot of back and forth, and a lot of people weighing their options, and a lot of cancelings as well. When it comes up to the time and suddenly someone gets a slightly better offer, it's still a better offer. But as soon as we started opening up shows on Thursdays, even just Thursdays, and then I run a twice monthly Sunday show. Nice. And all of a sudden, when the conversation stopped being Friday, can you come out and do a Friday, Saturday? And it started becoming, can you do a Thursday, Friday, Saturday, or even better, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday? Yeah. Everybody's rates just like dropped across the floor because they're like, perform 4 times, sign me up. And it was awesome.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. I used to do Tuesdays. I don't do them anymore, but I'll do 5-night runs pretty regularly where it's Wednesday, awesome. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And although I have learned, I also used to do shows every month of the year. And I think this is the first year I'm just giving up on, it's not that valuable. There are times of the year where people it's too hard to sell tickets and I'm losing too much money. Why not just do all the shows during busy weekends on ski season when the shows are going to be packed? And
those summer months are tough, man.
They're tricky.
It's so funny how I feel like that's something that people don't know until they start comedy and stuff, where they're always like, oh, it must be really tough when around Christmas. I'm like, no, Christmas is actually great. It's excellent. Valentine's Day is the greatest day of my life. in terms of like monetary value. People go out, they see comedy shows, and then screw hiking. I hate
Yeah.
it. It takes every person away from
Yeah,
me.
we got a weekend Valentine's Day too this year, Saturday
Yeah.
night. It's gonna be
Yeah,
a big weekend.
I already got asked for like 3 shows like 4 months in advance or something like that.
Nice.
I was like, geez, people are booking these earlier and earlier.
That's amazing. Can I ask you a question? And then we got a question from online from North
Oh,
Carolina.
sure. Yes.
Do you find that your own shows that aren't don't tell shows, is there a difference in butts and seats?
Yeah, I mean, don't tell shows because it's such a like generic open market blast to hey comedy lovers basically. I think it definitely pulls just a general audience sort of thing. Whereas the ones that it's like I've curated it, I've done the marketing, I've really like pushed that. At that point, I think you start getting a style of audience as well. Like my main show that I book, Comedy Church, is a show for ex-religious people. So it's people who know way too much about a thing that they no longer believe.
Right.
And so it's fun to like talk in that inside joke sort of way with them. And so it's a very like predominant sort of group or personal group. I had even an open mic that I ran that was extremely well attended, that would sell out a 120 seat venue every single time. And I marketed it very specifically to college kids and people on dates on Monday nights. And it got exactly that sort of group. And so you could like feel the comedy and what type of comedy you wanted for that room and stuff. Whereas, yeah, don't tell, it's such a toss up. A lot of times in Park City, you get a lot of people who are surprisingly a lot more, I mean, I guess not too surprising. It's a lot more right wing than I think what I'm used to for like a lot of my other comedy shows.
Well, probably.
Yeah. And so it all drifts that way. So yeah, I see a difference.
Yeah. But and not just the variety of audience. What about the quantity? Like Don't Tell is kind of famous for, even in summer months, packing out rooms. They're very good at filling a room.
Yeah, I mean, we still sometimes have a little bit of difficulty during the summer months. That's true. Once again, I think it just depends. Like if it's my Comedy Church show, once again, we're pretty consistent. The only thing that hits us in the summertime is Pride, because the amount of gay people who were brought up religious and then for obvious reasons have decided to no longer attend church, right?
Mhm.
But compare that to things like that same open mic where college kids weren't in there and it just dropped. I think Don't Tell definitely pretty consistently, but we move like Park City down from a show a week to every other week. And we move Salt Lake City shows to the opposite weeks as well, because we assume we're pulling from both cities at that point, rather than having enough of a population to just attend during the winter months to both.
And then you do weekly during the ski season when it's busier, or during winter when people are more apt to go to a comedy show.
Yeah, during winter we do a show a week in Salt Lake City and Park City, and then summer it's alternating the city.
That's
instead.
cool. That's great. That's a gem for anybody out there watching this. That is true hard-earned comedy wisdom right there. All right, here comes the North Carolina question. What has living in many places, it's for you, Adam, taught you about comedy, people, and performing?
Oh, that's such a nice question. I think the first thing, at least that comes to mind, is that as I think when you craft jokes that are both one, primarily good and supportive of comedy, which feels like a really obvious thing to say, but I don't think it is. The amount of people who write jokes for themselves and then they get up on stage and are like, I just keep doing it because this is who I am, sort of thing. So I think the first part is crafting jokes that are comedically based, which sounds dumb. But then the second part is having the confidence and practice of those jokes. I've learned that comedy groups are mostly the same everywhere you go. And I think a lot of times people, especially if people are comedians and they're afraid to get out of their town, they talk about things where they're like, well, what's it like doing comedy in South Carolina? And like, it's honestly just like doing comedy in Salt Lake City for the most part. Like, to be perfectly honest, like it's just people who want to laugh in different places. And if you've got like the confidence and the tested jokes and all that, you don't have to write a new hour all about South Carolina.
Right.
Like, just people are there and people want to enjoy themselves, which I guess comes to the next idea, which is the joy of comedy. I think we saw like the last what was it? I don't know, maybe like a decade ago, comedy with meaning was very popular, and I think that that's still great, and I think that that's really good. And then lately, I feel like there's a lot of like comedy with a point, where it's like a little bit more political discourse in both directions, which I also think is good and needed. But I think the thing that people forget sometimes, and especially for these gigs that you're doing all around the country, and when you're getting like a guest spot or a feature spot that's maybe like 15 minutes or whatever, I feel like people are forgetting the joy of comedy, that there's so many jokes that are really just about silly little times and goofing around and dorky stories and all that. And I feel like that connects the most with the most amount of people, when it's someone who's like, I'm here to experience joy. Because you're blocking the screen on purpose, buddy. This is my heckler interaction. You're doing a great job.
Yes, great job interrupting the show.
We do this.
That's our cue. I think he's giving you the light right now. Let's start winding down. That was a great answer. Thank you so much. Adam, obviously a great father, a great dad, also very funny. I've seen him perform. Terrific comedian out of Salt Lake City, Utah. Also a great showrunner. Where can people find you? And then maybe you could wrap up with a goal for 2026. We're in early 2026 right now.
Yeah. At Adam Broud is where you can find me on all social media. And then, yeah, so that was the first one. I'm so sorry. What was the second part?
Is some kind of goal for 2026, something you're going to work on since it's early in the year?
Yeah, my goal is that I've been working on is I'm planning on releasing a special to YouTube and to Spotify. So keep an eye out for that. So yeah.
Very cool. Well, we'll do another episode sometime. We'll talk about all the logistics of taping that and finding a venue, and that sounds very fun. And Milo, where can people find you?
Milo can be found in his room, grounded till he's 18 years old.
Incredible. Thanks, Adam. Stick around for a second, and everybody else have a great week. Thanks for